All right. What I'm going to do in this video is give you a quick update on our center culture, because that's the kind of the primary one I'm talking about the most. And then I have a bunch of other cultures here. They're each doing something different. I just want to show it to you. I'm going to show each one of them to you and explain it to you. And again, the whole purpose of this is I'm experimenting a little bit. And I would probably say I'm not experimenting. I'm just trying to find a product. I sell Daphnia, and I'm experimenting with a few things. So instead of experimenting, I'm just trying to make some observations, right? And you can kind of see a big observation, or you can observe something I'm doing here is with the 3 vases with substrate. In one, it's a sponge. The other, it's fluorite, clay. And then over here, we have cocoa fiber. I'm going to say cocoa fiber. The other word's too hard. I mess it up every time. All right, so I got 3 substrates, and I'm just observing. And really, what I want to do is, I sold Daphnia cultures, and I would just go with something like this because it's simple and easy. But my customers didn't really understand it. I think it's just water. Even though this is the oldest one up here. This one now is several months old. It hasn't been fed much. There's hardly any food in there. It's very well decayed food. It's just a very organic, rich now from being fed for a couple months, and they're just happy as can be. It's full of Daphnia. I could actually pour that into a aquarium, or half of it, and my fish would be able to eat those Daphnia, then replace the water with the aquarium water and give it a few more days. So this is the oldest one. It's been a couple months. Like I said, this has been my typical product, but I'm trying to make a little bit more suitable product, or I'm trying to make a product my customers better understand, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to go with something like this. I think this is what I'm probably going to be sending folks. It's just a cocoa fiber with a little bit of eggshell in it. But I'll get into these in a minute. Let me give you the update on this center culture first, because I got away from it. This is really what I've been focusing on. I've started to squish. I was going to get this cord out of there. I started to squish some of them smaller snails because there was getting to be too many snails. And then I took out 2 of the large ones and placed them into a different aquarium. I have a snail project going on, so the snails are really unimportant. It's just a snail. I thought my microphone fell off. So I started to squish a couple snails just to keep their population kind of under control, because there's actually quite a few of them in there. And then I took 2 of the big ones out. Like I said, just there's getting to be too much in there. And this thing's about going on 2 months old. I had just started it, filled it with water, put Daphnia in it, started feeding it, and haven't had the problem other than when it I don't want to say crashed, but when the cycle got off a little bit, when like aquarium would, oftentimes if you just were to start an aquarium with something in it, it'll tend to have a kind of a whiplash effect a month later or so, which it did, and it's back to nearly harvestable. And And honestly, I have really neglected these cultures here. And I say that, and I don't want to say neglected, but they haven't been fed much because I've been camping. I've been working on my house. I got many reasons. I've been busy. So they've hardly been fed. That's why I'm doing this video like this. We're just going to feed them. Blah blah blah. Anyway, so that's center culture. Like I said, I squished a few snails, took a couple out. It's like 70 degrees. That looks good. All right, I'm going to go through these others real quick, and I'm going to feed my cultures. I often feed banana, and I will often feed banana peel that's greener than this, but this is all I have. And the banana peel kind of trips people out, but it's a really great food because it decays over a very long period of time. The greener it is, the longer it takes. So oftentimes it'll take 4 or 5 weeks for a banana peel to fully decay. And in that time, it's hosting its own biome, which the Daphnia feed from. And yeah, so all right. So I updated you on that center one. I mean, like I said, not a whole lot. Just took out a couple snails. We have a little hair algae growing. Nothing to be worried about. You can see it even stringing up, from top to bottom. People will tell you that will catch Daphnia and kill them. That's nonsense. Anyway, let me go through these other cultures each individually now. There's quite a few here. So when I start this, Alright, so when I start a culture, this is what I do. I just fill it with water. I'll put the plant or the snail or the substrate in that I want. This is this is cocoa fiber with a piece of giant duckweed. And I also have been adding a plant called wolfia, which I'll get to. But this is how I start a culture. The cultures that I offer for sale. This is just the very beginning of it, and I will start feeding it. I'll often put Daphnia in them just right away. I have pretty friendly water, so I can usually start these up the minute I start them. And I'm actually going to use this other culture now because it's just getting old and dirty looking. So I'm going to use this really to inoculate those other cultures. I'm just going to mix it up. This will get some of the old organic matter. Essentially, I'm seeding this with the biome and microorganisms and whatnot. Okay, so that's how I start them. So these will then just be fed like once a week, and then I'll keep it for like 2 months, and then I'll sell it and send it to somebody. So let's feed it. I'm gonna give it probably more than I should, but I need these cultures, so I'm gonna give it just a little wedge. It's not much, and that is a piece of banana with the banana peel. All right. I have a really sharp knife here. If you're lucky, I'm going to cut myself. I mean, not lucky, but you're like, look what that dummy did. All right, that's how I start these. Oh, another thing that I'm doing that's different, just different snails. This culture here, probably shouldn't point with a knife. The culture here has no snails, and you can tell that it's dirtier looking. And yeah. This one has smaller snails that I just put in there, and there's a lot of algae growing on the side. And we'll get into snails a little bit. I just like snails, so I am using this little project here to isolate a few of my snails. All right. Then, like I said, the cultures that I am probably really going to sell more than any will just be the Daphnia cultures with cocoa fiber and some eggshell. I think the eggshell is probably overkill, but people like it that way. Like I said, it makes sense to people. And the eggshell is because probably the two things Daphnia need a lot of is glucose and calcium. So that's why I feed them just like fruits and vegetables, and that's why you'll see the eggshell. And there's not eggshell in these yet. We're just playing around. All right. This one, just fish store locally. He had a tank with just some random snails that I grabbed. Like I said, I just like snails. So I put them in here. That's how I, excuse me. That's how I quarantine them for a while. And there's Daphnia in here too. Once you start culturing Daphnia, you'll find them everywhere. They're in every aquarium I have without fish, and you'll find them in little containers, and they're in my ponds outside, and they just get everywhere. They're particularly they are in this one in particular because this is a quarantine thing, so just make sure the Daphnia will be okay with these hopefully not diseased snails. All right. Again, these are just similar to what I offer. I want to talk about the plants. I don't usually like plants in my cultures just because they complicate them. You'll notice in the vases behind them, I don't have a plant in there except two. This giant duckweed. The tough thing with these cultures, if you don't aerate them, you can get a little biological film on it, on the surface, and it's a little tough on plants. Like a lot of floating plants, but this giant duckweed does pretty good. And really the only reason I do that is just to send a customer a plant. I mean, people that like Daphnia tend to like plants, so bam. This one, okay, this is going to be really hard to see. Do you see? There's a little cocoa fiber floating, but do you see that little green dot that floats around in there? That's called Wolfia. That is another culture item. It's actually a plant, but it's high in protein, and it actually tastes good, and it's a salad additive. I guess in Asia it's a fairly common item for a salad topping, like I said. And fish that like a high vegetable diet love this stuff. So if you were to put in like swordtails or goldfish or just whatever that likes a higher plant matter, they go crazy for this stuff. And it's really easy to culture. You can just put it in a container on a windowsill and just let it sit in water and scoop it out as needed. But in this application, I'm just using it to send a customer a plant. And like I said, I'm trying to make some more observations than just the basic culture I have sent people. I want to make sure that Wolfia is not going to be problematic, and that's why these cultures are down in this area, because these are just all cultures I'm observing. These other cultures will go into my regular culturing area now. But these are the cultures that I'm just observing. Like I said, which substrate is going to be the best. Like, I've really ruled out any kind of gravel because I'll be shipping these. I might go with a piece of sponge. Sponge works really great. Cocoa fiber, I'm not as familiar with in my cultures, but it really gets... I have a lot of cocoa fiber everywhere. It gets in my aquariums and whatnot because I also culture white worms in it. Alright, so... I was going to be feeding everything here too, and I got sidetracked. So again, I'm going to be giving all of these a little piece of banana with a piece of banana peel. It's just a very small piece. Might look big on camera, but it's just a little tiny wedge. I'll tell you the biggest secret here is you can't you cannot underfeed your Daphnia. I'll give you an example. The culture that I was getting rid of, I once had a culture like this, and I've done various little experiments, and I took one of these that got a little organic like this one did, and then I placed it off to the side, and then I just left it there, and it sat there for a year. It was a full year. I took it down, and it still had Daphnia in it, and it was just a natural cycle going on in there, and that's how reliable these are. But like I said, this kind of confuses people. They're like, man, it just looks like gross water, but it's actually a cycled Daphnia culture. It just does not have a substrate or snails or anything. So I'm going to give them some banana. That was a kind of a big piece. Oh well. Alright. Well, I'm not going to add the banana peel into everyone. It's kind of a pain. So, and you know, like, this is just the process I go through when I cycle these. I don't do anything different. This whole project here is I'm just, like I said, making a few observations. Alright. Can't underfeed. If I were to overfeed, I will just muck it all up, and that's probably that's the best way to crash your culture. Alright, I hope I covered everything. I just wanted to give you an update, and it's been a while. And I thought it just best to show you everything. And I'm just sitting here wondering if I covered everything, and I believe I did. I am going to, like I said, get rid of the one that's just getting old. I just use it to inoculate. I'll just use it to inoculate other cultures like you just saw. I'm going to obviously cut these labels off. And, yeah. I don't think I'm saying anything more. Oh, and this one I added some small, I believe they're bladder snails. They were from my outdoor Daphnia culture, which I took down. So I really don't need it anymore, and it just takes up space. But I will be adding snails to these, and it's going to be these snails. I have these other snails, which you'll see are pretty large. That's a radix snail, but they're a little too large. I'll just put small bladder snails in these, and so what's going to happen is I'll take 2 or 3 snails, plop them in here, and then this goes on the other shelf. And there you have it. I think I covered everything. All right, watch for the next video.